That's not happening. That's pretty much stopped if you've been paying attention. Tax-free municipal bonds, the place you park money for widows and orphans. AAA rated tax-free municipal bonds. Rated by Moody's. People don't trust the AAA rating anymore. Cities wanting to build new water projects, roads, sewers, whatever it might be, are having to offer 17 and 18% interest to get people to buy their tax-free municipal bonds. And they aren't doing it. They can't afford to pay that kind of interest and build new infrastructure in that manner. They simply can't do it. There's a lot of foundational things about our economy that are at severe risk right now in March of 2008. The apparent solution is to create more money, which will make the crisis longer and worse, but that has been the decision, and they're going to stick to it. They're not going to change that decision. My advice to people is to focus on the local, focus on what you can do to help protect your family and your loved ones. I get people calling me on the radio, on my radio show all the time, asking about little hints here and there about what will help make their family safer. Should I move here? Should I move there? Well, you folks need to make your own decision about what's going to be safe for you. I'm not going to make that decision for you. Even if you bring me in as a private consultant, I won't make that decision for you. I will tell you what the possibilities are. I will tell you what to look out for, and then the decision is up to you as to what you'll be doing, how you will do it, why you will do it, how much money you're going to spend. Under normal conditions, under normal circumstances, it takes about a year from the first time you say, Mr. Contractor, I want to make an appointment with you, until he hands you the key that you can move into your new home. Whether it's an earth-sheltered concrete home or a regular home out here in the suburbs, it's typically about 1 year. So that's your window. And after that, no matter how much money you've got, it will be very, very difficult to get anything done in less than a year. Granted, money talks. That's an old saying, and there's a lot of truth to it. I know some of these contractors that specialize in these monolithic concrete domes and earth-sheltered homes, and they typically have a backlog of 6 to 8 months of homes to build, because there aren't that many of them doing. Point being, ladies and gentlemen, whenever you folks are out there watching this tape in the future, if you have the financial resources and want to build something, you need to figure on about 12 months from the time you make that first call until the time the contractor hands you the keys and you're ready to move in. There's websites on the handout there, no need for panic, listed at the back. Mr. Rawls, the author of the book I mentioned, he has a website, Survival Blog, and we're going to include some of these websites on the tape here at the end so people can watch them. Survivalblog.com. Excellent website. I highly recommend it. The radio station that I'm on, Republic Broadcasting, has a number of talk show hosts that deal with all kinds of topics. The man on the show before mine on Sunday evening, Sunday afternoon, focuses on preparedness. We have other talk show hosts to talk a lot about health-related topics and, of course, the geopolitical matters. There's a lot of education you can get from listening to talk radio. And I urge people to get as much education as they can in the time that remains. There is a story, and I'm not sure if it's true or not that it matters. Shortly after John Kennedy came to office, he got a private audience with the Pope. And that's publicly documented and well known. It's believed that the Pope revealed some secrets to President Kennedy at that meeting. Because when President Kennedy came back, he started implementing executive orders that had to do with preparedness. Of course, at the time, we were just coming out of the Cold War, and people thought it was Cold War related. Made sense at the time. The Vatican and the Vatican Library has records going back millennia, literally millennia. There's a belief, and it's based on some evidence, and we've all heard this story, about the ancient library at Alexandria, Egypt, and how the Romans burned that library. There's some evidence that when the Roman government did that they took all the valuable stuff, the books on engineering, mathematics, medicine, they took all that back to Rome. And what they burned to heat the Roman baths for months was the books that nobody cared about, old tax records and a bunch of stuff that had been lying around for centuries, literally. They burned that stuff up. Roman government has had an intelligence service like all governments do. They took it back and they kept it. And when the Roman government was about to collapse, the Vatican government took it over. It took custody of all those documents from the library at Alexandria, Egypt. And they've had them ever since. They've known, because they've had the records, what was coming at us, both from the Bible and from other written records of other cultures. They've known what was coming at us. And they apparently warned, President Kennedy about what was coming at us. And whether it was because of the Cold War or because of what he learned from the Pope, President Kennedy began implementing the emergency preparations at the federal government level back then in the early 1960s. And those preparations have continued to this day. Back in the mid to late 1990s, there was some public attention to shelters being built by the Russians. And it didn't make any sense. Well, the Cold War is over, the Soviet Union's collapsed, we got democracy in Russia. Why are they building these shelters that could house tens of thousands of people in the Ural Mountains? They're literally cut the middle of a mountain in the Ural Mountains. Why are they doing that now? It didn't make any sense. Well, now it makes sense. They need to shelter their people too. It's the nature of any large organization to want to take care of their own people. And the Russians, of course, are doing that as well. Talk about the Chinese a little bit. The maps I've seen of what Asia will look like after these ocean levels come up show China losing a substantial part of their agricultural land, the land that they grow food on to feed more than 1 billion people. They're still going to want to do that, even though they've lost all that land. There's a very good possibility, and once again it's backed up by evidence. A friend of mine who's still active in the military, he got on a Black Hawk helicopter at MacDill Air Force Base. This is very recently, the last 3 or 4 years. Flew across the Gulf of Mexico to Mexico, to the country of Mexico, and got off the Black Hawk helicopter at a Russian military base in Mexico. My same friend, when he was in Bosnia, he was liaison with Spetsnaz, the Russian Special Forces. And he says, John, these guys, they speak English with a neutral Midwestern accent, they train with American uniforms, and they brag about confiscating firearms in Bosnia as practice for what they'll be doing in the United States. There is evidence that both Russia and China fully intend to invade the United States and capture the heartland, the grain-growing area. The grain-growing area will be largely unaffected by these earth changes unless Yellowstone blows its top, which that would take out about 1/4 of it, more or less. Otherwise, the grain-growing area of this country will be largely unaffected, and that's still very special. It's still very important. The ability to have hundreds of thousands of acres that can grow corn, wheat, and soybeans. Extremely important. The information I'm getting from private sources tells me that both the Russians and the Chinese are doing the logistical planning, the logistical stockpiling that I'd be doing. If I was planning an invasion, I'd be doing exactly what they're doing. Pre-positioning supplies in Mexico and Canada. That appears to be exactly what's going on. As we all learned from watching the first Gulf War, it took the better part of a year to move in all the logistical things that we needed to fight a war, and then about a month to cycle the men in these large transport planes. So that's what they're doing, ladies and gentlemen, based on the information that I'm getting from my private sources. I don't know what else I can tell you. I've answered every question that I'm aware of. If more questions come up, you've got my phone number on the front of my article there, no need for panic. I am reachable for private consultations. I do a radio show 2 hours a week on Republic Broadcasting from 4 to 6 p.m. is my current time slot on Sunday afternoons. My passion is to help people be safe. I've seen the consequences of not being prepared. I've seen violent death firsthand. I've smelled the bombs. I've seen the bleeding bodies. I've heard the screams of the people dying in agony. And it's not a fun place to be. My passion is to see people be safe. And I'll do anything I can to help people be safe and be prepared. That's my passion. That's why I'm up here doing this. And with that, I will ask that God bless you all and that God bless this country. And thank you very much.